Hello everyone and welcome back, it's Zakiziel here, and tonight I'll be reacting to Gavin Bob and OGRYN story Warhammer 40K by a Vox in the Void narration. This one has been highly requested, and I am sorry for the delay in getting to it, but we're here. As always, there'll be a link to the original video in the description box below, and you should, if you haven't already, check out Vox in the Void's channel. And without further ado, let us begin.
Gav Smith was part of the Imperial Guard. He was a guardsman, and this made Gav very happy. Gav liked being a guardsman, because then he could do the will of the immortal God Emperor, and that was one of Gav's most favourite things to do in the whole world. Today it was Gav's turn to fetch the huge sack of potatoes from the food wagon, and to peel them. Gav liked to do this, because he also liked eating potato peel. The commissar
I too enjoy potato peels. A bit of olive oil on them and bake them, and you can make some rather crispy chips out of them.
I said Gav was a good OGRYN, because Gav did all the things that he was told to do. This made Gav very happy. The commissar was not like other commissars, because he did not shout and shoot people for being scared of things like small spaces and the dark. This was
Oh yeah, because OGRYNs really don't like confined spaces. Actually getting them into a chimera transport, if I remember correctly, is pretty difficult.
good, because Gav did not like small spaces, and Gav was scared of the dark, because that was when nightmares came to get you. The commissar was Gav's friend. The commissar was not an OGRYN like Gav, and was really smart, and could read and write, and Gav could not do that, because it was too hard.
Yeah, because, the whole thing with OGRYNs having the intelligence level of children, basically.
Not even the Sarge could read long words, but the commissar said that that was okay, because Gav was better at killing orcs than he was.
So the bonehead that leads a squad can't read long words. Well, makes sense considering the intelligence displayed by some of the boneheads in other stories, as well as in the game Darktide, which some of the different personalities you can choose for the OGRYN in Darktide, it'd make me think of one of them. I'm pretty sure is an orc that's pretending to be an OGRYN, or vice versa. The other one sounds like a drunk from a pub, and the third one, yeah, love my emperor.
This made Gav very happy, because Gav liked to be useful.
Do you want to help peel the potatoes, Bob?
Bob was one of Gav's friends. They had come from the same tribe on the planet Barakak. Gav missed his tribe. When the war against the orcs was over, he would be able to go back home. Or if more than 10 years was over. It had been nearly 2 years, and they had nearly won. The commissar said this was because Gav and his friends were such good fighters, and they were making the Emperor happy by killing nasty orcs. The commissar's name was Narration von Kelverstein, but he said that Gav and his friends could call him Ari if they wanted to, because they were all friends.
Yes, please,
said Bob.
Commissar sounds kind of like a dad to the OGRYNs.
Bob liked eating potato peel too. For breakfast it was mashed potato and mushy peas. Gav did not like mushy peas. Peas should come in a pod, and they should not be mushy. Gav had used to grow peas for his tribe. Gav missed his tribe, but he also had such wonderful friends here as well. It was good to have friends, especially when you had to kill orcs. Gav killed orcs with a big las cannon. The commissar said it was a gift from the Emperor, so Gav kept it clean and shiny, and made sure that he did not put it down somewhere and forget where. But sometimes he did. But then the commissar would come and tell him where he had lost it, and then he would tell Gav not to do it again. But Gav always did, even though he never meant to. This made Gav sorry. Bob killed orcs with a las cannon as well, but Bob did not lose his so much. Gav sometimes wished he was as good at not losing things as Bob was.
So far this story really captures the childlike nature that I've been told OGRYNs have.
The commissar did not have a big shiny gun like Gav. All Ari had was a small long las rifle, but that was okay, because the Ari was very small.
Also just big, gorilla-sized child that can use essentially something the size of a car door as a shield.
Commissar Ari was very clever, because he had been everywhere and done everything. Once, he had stood on a landmine, and one of his legs was made of metal, and it went clonk when he kicked a stone. Gav was happy that his foot is not made of metal, because it sounds cold. Bob liked having potato peeling contests with Gav. Gav kept on losing, but Gav did not mind, because he was peeling potatoes for the Emperor.
Potato peeling contests. Yeah, that does act sound kind of like the goofy stuff of that OGRYNs would do to entertain themselves.
Gav loved fighting. He wished he was better at it. Whenever he sparred with Bob, he always ended up knocked out, but he didn't mind. He knew that Bob was helping him get better, and the better he got, the better Gav could serve the immortal Emperor. Gav hated the small tank he had to ride in. Every time he was called to serve the Emperor, he had to ride in that scary, dark place. But it was all right, because Bob was there, and he'd lead all the other OGRYN in a rousing chorus of "The Emperor is the best." They only knew
Is Bob the bonehead in the squad?
the chorus anyway, but it helped the dark, tight place seem less scary. The flashing lights always made Gav happy. That meant he was going to serve his Emperor. That meant the door would open, and he'd be able to shoot his gun. Gav loved his gun. He loved it when he fired it, and the enemy died. He'd hold down the trigger and shout at the enemy, making them die in the name of his Emperor, his best friend Bob, right beside him. He liked Bob. Bob was his best friend. Gav had fought all kinds of enemies of the Emperor. His favourite were the greenskins, because they seemed to like fighting as much as Gav did. He knew to go for the big ones, the one who was hitting all the others. It was a race to see who would kill the big one first. Bob usually won. If you killed the big one, the regular orcs would be easier to beat. The bugs scared Gav. They made him sick to his stomach, especially when he slammed the butt of his gun against their head, and they blew up all over him. They smelled bad, and tasted bad. You couldn't cook bugs. Not even the stumpies could make them taste good. The pants stealers were the worst.
Pants stealers. Yeah, gene stealers stealing both your pants and your genetics.
Gav always made sure his belt was extra tight when he fought pants stealers. The humans who turned against the Emperor always made Gav extra angry.
Actually, now I think about it, I wonder how heretical it would be for some guardsmen I know to say after a like if they survive an engagement with Tyranids to try and if they were to actually to try and cook Tyranid meat, if it would be as bad as what Gav said in this story.
Why would they stop loving the Emperor? What did the Emperor do to them, except love them and protect them? Gav always loved killing bad humans. It made him feel good. Commissar Ari said that was good. Being angry against traitors was good. That made Gav happy. When Ari first told Gav that, he'd hugged Ari so hard, he'd had to stay in the Medicaid hotel for a week.
No.
The food was really good when Gav visited. Gav had only faced the metalheads once, but he knew that he never wanted to do it again. No matter how hard you hit them, they just get back up again.
Oh yeah, the Necrons, and how they literally just get back up if you gun them down a good number of times. In the Dawn of War strategy games, if I remember correctly, the chance for a Necron warrior to just get back up when you killed them was like 30%? I don't know how much you have to roll on the tabletop to get that.
It wasn't fair. Every other enemy was kind enough to die when you showed them how bad they were. The metalheads were cheaters, coming back to life like that. Bob said that Ari said that his Professor Kane at the big school was scared of the metalheads. Gav didn't believe him. Commissars aren't scared of anything, and Kane is some kind of super commissar.
Or Caiaphas Kane. The misadventures of Caiaphas Kane, hero of the Imperium.
He must melt metalheads with his eyes or something. Gav hated the Eldar. They were like shiny bugs. You'd almost get your hands on them and they'd slip through your fingers. Their little arrows hurt too.
Ah yes, the shuriken catapult and shuriken pistol and other just shuriken weaponry, firing 1 molecule thick wraith bone shards. Which, considering that their guns fire shuriken at people and some of the aesthetics that go into them, it's like there's a lot of Japanese influences in there.
Bob was better at fighting Eldar than Gav. He'd back them into a corner and crush their mushy bodies with his bare hands.
They break easy once you corner them,
Bob would say, shiny blood covering his uniform. That made Gav smile. He missed Bob. Bob always made him smile. Gav was the
Also, because Eldar move so fast, if I remember correctly, isn't that one of the reasons why when the Guard fight them, I've heard that popular strategies include throwing grenades, because you can't really dodge an explosion if you get caught in the blast radius, and also just firing las guns in the general direction of them and catching them by sheer volume of fire. Which, I guess, is the orc method, really.
there the day that Ari died. One day, Gav and Bob and all their friends had gone for a walk. They were walking through a forest. Gav liked the forest because it smelled like home. Ari was walking at the back of them. He always did this to make sure none of them got lost. Gav once got lost. It had made him scared. Ari never got lost. He was really smart like that. But then an orc, all dressed like a tree, shot him. Gav did not see it happen. He could.
Orc dressed like... Oh, orc commandos! Wait, are they fighting blood axes then?
not stop it. The sound of Ari dying had warned them all. They had killed the nasty orcs with the big guns the Emperor had given them. But Ari was dead. They took him back to the camp to see if the flesh fixer could fix him. He tried, but Ari had already gone to the Emperor. This made the whole tribe sad. Everyone in the tribe liked Ari. Ari was smart. They dug a hole for Ari to sleep in. Bob was the priest of the tribe, so Bob said the death words over the place where Ari slept. The whole tribe wept. They did not weep for Ari, because Ari was with the Emperor. They wept for themselves, because they had been left behind. Losing Ari was bad, but losing Bob made Gav sadder than ever. Bob was the reason Gav hated demons as much as he did. He'd fought them before, and he'd found them to be so confusing. Some of them were easy, charging or shambling forward with big swords or small daggers. They broke easy. The skinny ones were like Eldar, but they made Gav feel weird. Looking at them was like looking at a girl OGRYN after Gav had learned what they were for. But they broke easier than the red skin or rotting demons, once you could stop them from dancing. The last demons were the kind that took Bob. He hated them most of all. He hated their laughing at him. They'd surprised them after Bob and Gav had been leading them.
Laughing? So I'm guessing either a greater demon of Slaanesh or a greater demon of Tzeentch. Although Syl's really sad at like first he loses the Commissar, which it's like the Commissar's basically their dad. And now losing his best friend to a demon.
Their new Commissar, Gav could never remember his name, into a church to the Emperor. Gav had a headache the whole time. They'd made the place bad. They'd broken statues of the Emperor and carved a weird flame all over the church. That's when the demons had attacked.
Weird flame. Okay, that's definitely Tzeentch, I think. Given what his emblem looks like, the eye with the flame.
They'd burned the Commissar before any of Gav's groups could react. They looked like water that had grown faces. Looking at those faces made Gav's nose bleed. Gav would never forget those faces. Bob rushed into the thick of things, like he always did. Bob was always that way, charging forward for the Emperor, killing his enemies. Bob was good at that. He was a good friend. The water demons were fast, really fast. They jumped back and burned Bob to a crisp. But Bob didn't die like the Commissar. Gav sometimes felt bad that he couldn't remember the Commissar's name. He hoped someone remembered the Commissar's name. Bob caught one of the water demons with his hands and ripped it apart. It was pink before, and it had been happy, laughing. Now the two pieces were blue, and they weren't happy anymore.
Oh, that was a pink horror. No.
They attacked Bob and bit at him. The other tribe had started killing the other water demons, but they were too late. Bob's last words always made Gav sad.
I'm going to miss the potato skins.
Gav beat the blue water demons until he was slamming his hands into the floor of the church. He kept it up until he realized his hands were bleeding. He kept doing it until he realized he was crying. He kept crying until the general had found them. Gav still misses Bob. Bob was a good friend. Gav had never wanted to kill one of his friends. The general was a friend, but he wanted to kill the general once. He wanted to kill the general when he said that Bob needed to be burned. The tribe had their ways. Bob needed to be honored and buried, like all good friends. But the general said that Bob's body was sick, that if they didn't burn it, those water demons could come back. They burned Bob's body right there in that church. But not before Gav got his tribe together and gave him a short, proper funeral. Gav was Bob's best friend. His other tribesmen let him give the last words.
Bob, was a good friend. He liked to fight. He liked potato skins. He was a good soldier for the Emperor. Now he's with the Emperor.
Then one of the general's friends burned Bob's body right there in the Emperor's church. Now whenever Gav peels potatoes, he thinks of Bob. It doesn't hurt as bad anymore. Now he smiles and remembers how good a friend Bob was. Bob always made Gav smile. Even when he was dead, he could make Gav smile. Gav couldn't eat another potato skin. It didn't taste good anymore. Gav remembered the day he found the bad man who brought the water demons to the world. He would never forget that day. It was a week after Bob had been burned at the church. Bob was a good friend. The bad man had made an entire planet stop loving the Emperor.
This is just this is even sadder than Warrior Tear's OGRYN story. It's like, sure, Cadia got destroyed, and the OGRYN would never see his family again, and likely doesn't even know that they're dead. Which, oh boy, if he ever finds that out, that's gonna be crushing. But it's like, on the other hand, Gav got to see the Commissar get killed by an orc, and then got to see Bob die, and the corpse being burnt instead of being buried, which the burning is understandable considering that these are demons we're dealing with here, but still. Just all the things that they used to do together, that when he does them now just remind him of Bob, like the potato peeling.
He was one of the space marines that had stopped loving the Emperor. He was blue and gold and made Gav's head hurt when he spoke. Gav.
Blue and gold, the traitor marines. Thousand Sons?
Gav hated him more than anything he'd felt about before. Except how much he liked Bob. The bad man had taken over one of the big churches on the planet. He was killing people to make more water demons. Gav wanted to stop him. He wanted to make the bad man pay for killing Bob. Bob had been such a good friend. Gav would make the bad man pay. A lot of Gav's human friends died to get to the bad man. The bad man had brought his friends with him. His friends killed a lot of Gav's friends. That only made Gav hate the bad man more. His fellow guardsmen slowly made it closer to the big church. Gav wasn't scared of his small tank anymore. He was angry. He would make the bad man pay.
Foolish dullard. You hardly deserve to be considered sentient.
The bad man used big words. His voice made Gav's head hurt. His eyes bled. But he continued to try to run towards the bad man. Gav's tank had been blown up, and a lot of his friends were dead. They'd been good friends, but not as good as Bob. Bob was Gav's best friend. Gav would make the bad man pay. The bad man was as big as Gav. He was standing on top of a big set of stairs, right at the entrance to the church. He made Gav's human friends die with lightning, and he laughed. Gav hated it when the bad man laughed. He wanted to make the bad man shut up forever. The bad man struck Gav with the lightning. It hurt. It hurt real bad. Gav almost stopped running up the stairs, but then he remembered Bob. Bob wouldn't stop running. Bob would keep going. Gav wanted to be like Bob. Gav wanted to make the bad man pay. Gav would always remember the day he walked with little godlings. The bad men in the blue and gold armor were hard to kill, and they used heresy and magic. That made Gav hate them. Gav heard whispering in his head. They whispered how he could have everything he ever wanted, but they had nothing he wanted. They had taken a friend from him. Gav roared at them, and the bad men had died when he shot them. They could not whisper to him. His mind was too full of the Emperor's love, but they were too hard to kill, and they kept coming back. But the Emperor had sent his children to help him. The Emperor had a lot of children, and they were all very strong. All of the Emperor's children were little godlings. Gav and the tribe fought with them. They were very hairy, and had teeth that were just like Gav's teeth.
Oh, space wolves.
They had armor just like the bad men, but it was grey and blue. Gav wished he could wear armor like that. When the war was over, the godlings in the grey armor gave gifts to the tribe. They said the Emperor loved them very much. Then they sang songs for the dead.
Evolution has left you behind, scum. It's a pity you're too unintelligent to understand just how foolish you are.
The bad man wouldn't stop talking. Gav swung his big fists at him, but the bad man was fast. Faster than Gav thought he should be. Gav was getting tired, trying to hit him. The bad man hit him with his big staff. Gav went flying into a statue of the Emperor, shattering it. He felt bad. He wanted to apologize to the Emperor for breaking his statue, but he couldn't catch his breath.
Understandable after just getting hit with a force weapon. A force weapon wielded by traitor authorities.
His entire body hurt. He'd never hurt so bad in his life. The bad man was kneeling beside him. He grabbed Gav's neck and squeezed.
I pity you, poor creature. For this, you shall get the kindness of a quick death.
Gav lifted himself up suddenly and headbutted the bad man.
You killed Bob!
He shouted. He grabbed the bad man by the throat and lifted him up, driving his fist into the bad man's stomach.
You killed Bob!
The bad man shot lightning at him, but Gav hardly felt it. He was angry. Bob was a good friend, and the bad man's demons had killed him. Gav would make the bad man pay. The bad man kicked and punched at Gav, but Gav wouldn't let go. His arms hurt from holding the bad man up.
You killed Bob!
He tossed the bad man onto his stomach and jumped on top of him, grabbing his strange helmet and slamming his head down into the concrete. Again, and again, and again.
You killed Bob!
Slam.
You killed Bob!
Slam.
You killed Bob!
Slam. Gav was crying now. Bob had been a good friend.
You killed Bob!
Slam. The bad man wasn't moving now.
You killed Bob!
Slam. The bad man's helmet was leaking this strange powder.
You killed Bob!
Wait, strange powder? He's somehow a rubric marine? But weren't the rubric marines only the ones who weren't powerful, like powerful enough psychers to not get, dusted by the rubric?
Slam. 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 He was still slamming the empty armor into the ground when the Emperor's grey children came. His skin was burned and blackened. His eyes were bleeding as he cried, and every bone in his hands were broken. But he'd made the bad man pay.
As someone who has lost friends, particularly in the last few years as well, I can definitely sympathize. It was a really sad story. Just what happened. And I'm glad that at least Gav managed to well, get revenge on the Chaos Sorcerer, but unfortunately, that's not going to bring Bob back. Even though it was sad, though, I did enjoy listening, and I hope you guys enjoyed listening with me. And if you did, I'd appreciate it if you liked, comment, and subscribed. But that's all for tonight. I wish you all a wonderful night,